Hello everyone, Theodore Shoebat here, giving you guys another message that you will not hear at church. I guarantee that. So, I want to show you guys some of the things that I've been finding in my inquiry of the nationalist movement that is rising up in the world. The surge in nationalism and also the surge in popularity for eugenist and racialist ideologies, which are all really being done with the objective of reinvigorating Nazism in the world. It may not be called Nazism, but nonetheless, it is the new Nazism. It is the repackaged Nazism. Nazism with a smile. Nazism under the guise of patriotism, which really is reminiscent to the same strategy that was done in the first half of the 20th century. Okay, with that said, I want to show you guys a photo that came out yesterday. And it is a photo of Martin Sellner and Tommy Robinson together. Now, I've talked about both of these guys. In fact, one of them I actually debated, Martin Sellner. He is the leader of the Identitarian movement in Austria. And the Identitarian movement is just, it's another manifestation of the alt-right movement. It's actually older than the alt-right movement. So actually, I would say that the alt-right movement is really an extension of the Identitarian movement. It's more so like an American attempt to do what the Identitarians did in Europe. And Tommy Robinson is the founder of the EDL, and now he's also working with Pegida, and he's working with all of these groups, right? He is working with all of these nationalist, Nazistic groups. And so here he is with Martin Sellner, the leader of the Austrian Identitarian movement. And I actually debated Martin Sellner earlier this year and really exposed them. And I exposed how, and I also confronted him on how he is, him and his movement are, they are trying to revive pagan nationalism, which is really what Nazism was. It was pagan nationalism. And I confronted him on how his movement promotes the Japanese nationalist religion, Shintoism, which is also mixed with Buddhism. How on his website, there was actually an interview with a Japanese nationalist, and the Japanese nationalist actually advocated for Japanese politicians to go to the Yasukuni shrine and worship the souls of Japanese war criminals. And I told Sellner, if you don't care about how, in fact, it's not that you don't care. If you are all in favor for Japanese politicians worshiping their war criminals, Japanese war criminals who butchered millions of Asians and killed hundreds of thousands of American and Allied troops. If you don't care about that, right? That doesn't bother you. And in fact, if you are in favor for all of that evil, then you should be indifferent and or in favor for Germans worshiping their war criminals, the Nazis. Of course, he had nothing to say. Let's talk about something I found on the Identitarian website here that I wanted to talk to you about also. In 2014, one of your members, his name is Christoph A. I don't know if you know him. Christoph A. of the Identitaria, I can't pronounce it, Identitare Generation, interviewed a Japanese man by the name of Mitsuhiro Kimura, and he was the chairman of the Isuikai. And he was asked in this interview, what is the meaning of the Yasukuni shrine? To which he replied, and I'm not going to read the whole quote, it's kind of long, but essentially he says that it's good that the Japanese go to the Yasukuni shrine, it's good that we honor our fallen soldiers, venerate the fallen soldiers, in fact. Because in the Japanese culture, they call those who died in the Second World War, they call them kami, or the martyrs of Showa, the martyrs of the emperor, because Showa was the emperor. And it says here that the main significance of the shrine may be the mourning of Japanese warriors. And if you ever do research on the Yasukuni shrine, you will find out that the Yasukuni shrine is believed by the Japanese to hold the souls of war criminals. So are you proud of having such an interview where this Japanese, the leader of Mishima's organization, is saying, yeah, that's good. It's great.
I just was looking up. Well, I think that I'm I'm not the one to judge what Japanese people are doing, and I support patriotism and pride of your own heritage in every country and every nation that exists. And for the Japanese identity, it's a very important part to go there and visit those shrines. And the internationalists or globalists, in Japan who want to overcome and end with this tradition, just like they want to end all the other traditions in Europe and the rest of the world. I think it's a good thing if the Japanese refuse and continue with those
You
traditions.
think it's you
And I
think
think that
you think it's a
hmm?
good thing that Japan worships war criminals? For example,
No, I think it's a good. I think it's you have to in a way find a way to honor your ancestors who died and fought not only in one war but for all the wars without being like nationalistic, chauvinistic, and also denying the mistakes and the crimes you committed. And as far as I know, the Japanese politicians at the moment are still going to the shrine, but at the same time are accepting and in a way. Also addressing the crimes that Japan
okay,
committed,
so
and I think that's the same.
let's look at the facts here. I mean,
Mhm.
one of those worshipped in the Yasukuni Shrine is Iwana Matsui, who was one of the leaders responsible for the massacre of 250,000 Chinese people in Nanking in 1937, and they worship this man as a kami. In fact, you can go to the official website for the Yasukuni Shrine, and they say that
Mhm.
these people are gods, kami, like kamikazes. So
Yeah,
you
I
think
don't
it's
know
a good thing?
what's your intention about that.
My simple intention is to
Yeah.
say, well, this is wrong. Don't you think that it's wrong to worship war criminals? And you bring this guy over who says, "Oh yeah, we're simply honoring our culture," and you say, "Oh, they're simply honoring their culture." I mean, Martin, you sound like a liberal, to be honest with you. Like, oh, honoring their
No,
culture, his culture, their
I
culture. That's okay to
I
honor their
I think
culture.
you sound. Sorry, Ted, but you sound like a typical leftist liberal in Europe at the moment.
Because I
I
don't like
thought
war criminals.
we would talk about important issues that
This is
are
important.
concerning
A
Europeans at the
quarter of a
moment.
million dead
Yeah,
is not
but
important.
you are like searching for I don't know what kind of interviews and in a way I really don't know what's your intention about that what's your intention
I'm
behind
simply
that.
asking
As
you.
I could say, I don't support any war criminals or war
But
crimes,
this is
but
part of the
I completely
Japanese
understand
culture.
Japanese people want to go on with this tradition of this shrine, and
But this.
who am I to forbid them to,
So
to
who are
to
you?
go on with this tradition?
It sounds like exactly like the liberal. They say, well, the Aztecs plucked people's hearts out. The Spaniards came over and said, hey, this is wrong. And the liberal comes in and says, well, who are you to say? That's part of their culture. I don't necessarily disagree with it. You know, uh,
Yeah.
it's the same mentality. I don't necessarily agree with Aztecs plucking hearts
No, I don't
out.
think so.
But you see, you
I
have
think
here.
there's a big difference. I think there's a big difference, and I think that at the moment it's also I think at the moment I'm not concerned about ad stacks or whatever, because Europe is being overrun and swamped by foreigners is
Martin,
becoming in fact
you're preaching
an
to the
an
choir here.
Islamized area at the moment.
You're
Yeah,
preaching to the
and
choir here.
I really don't care about some Yasukuni shrine
It's on your
and
website.
one interview. Man, yeah,
It's on
but
your
yeah,
website,
but
and
it was one interview among many, and I
in
really don't understand why I should what's the link between
fact, it's
condemning
on the
the
Identitarian
Japanese
website.
doing
In
their tradition
it, it's an
and
evil tradition.
resisting the mass immigration and Islamization to
It's
Europe.
an evil tradition. It's an absolutely evil tradition. In fact, in the same interview, it says, in fact, in the same interview, the Generation Identitarian website stated that Mitsuhiro Kimura's organization, the Ishiukai, founded by Mishima, your hero, says is in the article says it's commonly counted as new right. Isn't that what you guys consider yourselves? New right?
I don't know what you know. I don't know much about this organization in Japan. We don't have any affiliation with them. In fact, I even didn't know about this interview.
It's
Or
on the
maybe
Identitarian website.
it's been a long time. But I have no problem interviewing them because I don't
This
I
is
don't think that we are to judge to tell the
we're not
Japanese
the judge.
what
Okay.
kind of the tradition and what part of the tradition they have to get up with.
This is
I mean, come on, how I think that's crazy.
this is the equivalent to someone saying, you know what, I want to revere the great spirit of Adolf Hitler, and don't say that doesn't happen, because I've heard it said before that, oh, the great spirit of Hitler lives on, and Hitler was a war criminal, and they are people who revere Hitler. So you have these Japanese people in Japan who are revering their Hitlers, they're Class A war criminals, and you're saying, oh, that's not a problem. Well, if that's the case, then you should have no problem with someone saying, hey, you know what? I want to revere the great warriors of Germany. I want to revere Adolf Hitler. I want to
No,
revere
oh come on,
Himmler.
that's so stupid.
It's not stupid at all. It's the
No,
same
come on,
thing. It's the same
completely
thing.
crazy.
Iwana
That's completely
Matsui. I
crazy.
know that's all you can say, but and he actually later deleted that interview from his website because he knew at that point that not everyone is a zombie, and they are actually people like myself who are willing to investigate these people and look behind the guise that they are trying to portray themselves as. And so here they are together. Here they are conspiring, and the average person will see it. You know, the average American conservative will see that and be like, oh, you know, right wingers getting together, this is great. Or, oh, you know, nationalists getting together to fight the Islamization of Europe. But I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. What I see are two devils, two insidious people devising evil using the threat of Islam as their cover up. So they use Islam so they can come out and say, well, let's promote nationalism, let's promote all of these things, let's start trouble. In other words, they are instigators. Oh, the Muslims get pissed off when you do this, let's do that. Get the Muslims pissed off. Get the Muslims to react, then get the white folks to react and have them kill each other. These people actually want Muslims to kill people, so that they can then use the emotions that causes, the emotions that would be expressed, the emotions that would be being felt by the people after a terrorist attack, use those emotions, manipulate those people through their emotions, and get them to follow them. In other words, they see a problem and take advantage of it, and then they portray themselves as the solution to that problem. Now, how do I know that Robinson and Sellner are interested in fomenting violence? How do I know this? Well, I will show you something here. A while back ago, I wrote an article. It was called Nazism is Taking Over Germany. And this was actually, I want to say, my first, or at least my first or second serious article on Germany and the rise and reinvigoration of Nazism under the guise of patriotism and all that. And I show how Tommy Robinson deliberately wants to start violence between people. And how he actually wants Islamic terrorism so that he can then use that situation to get people to follow him, to get people to follow nationalism and follow his agenda, which in the end of the day is a racialist agenda. And I learned this from an article that was written by a guy by the name of Jim Dawson. Now, Jim Dawson is the founder of a very popular organization in the UK called Britain First. It's a kind of counter jihad movement, but it's also mixed up with some Protestant beliefs, and they go around and they say that Islam is evil, but then they also say, you know, we should convert the Muslims to Christianity. And in that aspect, I can appreciate what they're doing in that aspect. But nonetheless, Jim Dawson was deep within the counter-jihad movement. He worked with Robinson. He knew a lot of the big guys in the CJ movement. He knew them: Anna Marie Waters, Tommy Robinson, Alan Eiling. Alan Eiling, for those of you who don't know, is a Swedish millionaire who's a evangelical guy who actually funds a lot of these counter jihad nationalist type groups. And anyway, they wanted Dawson, the founder of Britain First, to come to a meeting of theirs, and the purpose of the meeting was to discuss plans for advancing the counter jihad movement in the United Kingdom. So, to make a long story short, because Jim Dawson wrote a very long testimony about this story, and what took place in this testimony really, it bothered his spirit, and he felt that he could not be at peace with his own conscience working with these types of people, because what he heard in this meeting really revealed the nefariousness of these very groups and the nefariousness of these very types of people. I'm a patriot nationalist fighting against the Islamization of Europe, when in reality they're just using the situation of Islam to get people to follow them, and they use the emotions that terrorism provokes so they can get people to to follow them, get people to believe anything. Because if you can get people to think that the end of the world is near, or that their country is going to be invaded, you can get them to do anything. You can get them to do anything: murder, kill, believe in Nazism, believe in eugenics, Sieg Heil, all that stuff. And so anyway, Jim Dawson went to this meeting, and Anne Marie Waters was there, Robinson was there, Baroness Cox was there, by the way, and also Malcolm Pearson was there. Malcolm Pearson and Baroness Cox are both members of the British Parliament. So it wasn't just a bunch of activists. There were also people from government, which actually reveals that people in government have an interest, and they are investing an interest in these very types of movements, because they actually use them, because they also want to shift the political climate, to generate consent, to generate certain sentiments in the society. And that gets people to worship particular politicians. Just look at what happened with Donald Trump. Look at what happened in Austria. Look what has been happening in the Netherlands with people revering Geert Wilders, people revering Mark what's his name? Mark Rutte, I think his name is. People revering politicians, and so that gives the state more power, and it also allows the state to justify eugenics and things of that sort. Look at what's being done by the Alternative for Deutschland party in Germany. They are actually using the Islamic situation to justify eugenics, and that's why you have one of their leaders actually referencing social Darwinism and saying that the Africans and the Europeans, they evolved differently in the evolutionary process. And Frauke Petry also talked about how there's going to be a future war, and it's going to be a social Darwinistic struggle between the races and all that stuff. And this type of language was really unheard of 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. But now people are just widely accepting it because, well, eugenics is great, because to them, in their eyes, what proves eugenics is, well, what the Muslims are doing. This proves that the Middle Easterners are of inferior race and all that. So Dawson goes to this meeting. He writes up, he hears something that disturbs him. And what he heard, to make a long story short, because he wrote a very long testimony about this, what he heard was that what he heard from these people was that they want to start a Northern Ireland type conflict in the UK. And Anne Marie Waters said that what needs to be done is, and she had this plan, let's do a Dra Muhammad cartoon in the middle of a Muslim neighborhood, get the Muslims pissed off, provoke them, get them to react, kill some English people, British people or whatever, white British people, and get the native British people to react, and then just create this circle of violence and get them to kill each other. And they essentially said in this meeting that they want Muslims to kill people. And that's what I've been telling you guys for a little bit now, for some time now, that all these counter-jihad people, Pamela Geller, Robert Spencer, all these people, they want Muslim violence. They are actually the opposite of what they claim they are. They claim that they don't want Muslim violence. They claim that they want peace in society. But the reality is they are in glee every time Muslims kill people. They are in glee because that gives them the limelight. That allows them to further, or I should say, to go further in their agenda. Because initially it's let's fight Islam, but then the more and more Islamic violence occurs, the more leverage they have to then move further from that, to escalate their ideology from being soft to becoming harder. So at first they say, let's fight Islam, then they escalate it to, well, eugenics is okay. Let's start promoting these authors who actually openly promote eugenics. This is great, and that's why you have Mr. Fjordman, who's a Swedish eugenist, writing articles for Jihad Watch and Front Page Magazine and all that. The guy's a total freaking Nazi. They don't care because they can get away with it on account of the emotions that people have that are really provoked by what they see, Muslim terrorism and all that. And the whole thing with Muslim terrorism, as a side note, I will add, the whole thing with Muslim terrorism, let's be honest, this was something that was greatly, well, in a very major way, it was created by governments. ISIS, all the terrorism you see in Syria, all the terrorism you see in Iraq, all of this could have been easily prevented if the United States and NATO did not mess with the status quo in the Middle East, not changing forcefully the government system that's been going on for centuries, millennia, I should say, in the Middle East, getting rid of all the Arab dictators, Gaddafi, Saddam. All of this is what enabled Islamic terrorism. And also the fact that they armed a lot of these guys. I mean, if you take out the dictators that are killing the terrorists and then you arm the terrorists, I mean, that causes a lot of problems. And I'll read to you guys a quote from Mr. Dawson's article here, revealing what he heard in this meeting. And he says, quote, Anna Marie Waters, by the way, is a lesbian dyke who is a member of UKIP, which is just another reason why I hate UKIP. It's a separatist, instigating, reprobate political movement. In fact, the right-hand guy of the current leader, whose name escapes me, but the right-hand guy in this organization is actually a sodomite. Again, another reason to be suspicious of the whole Brexit movement. I think the whole thing was nefarious, and it was just a way to fragment the European Union to cause and instigate more fragmentation and cause more problems. In other words, messing with the status quo. When you mess with the status quo, people die. But it says here in this article, Anna Marie Waters outlined her idea of a Muhammad cartoon competition. It was also muted by the others that the displaying of cartoons should occur in towns and cities with large Muslim communities, both here and in Britain, and possibly in Europe. Robinson and Eiling both contributed to this discussion. And then it says here, Alan Eiling, Swedish millionaire who's funding this movement, and Tommy Robinson, the guy who founded the EDL, both stated that it was necessary to spark off a Northern Ireland-style conflict with the Muslim community, according to Donson. At this stage, this is what Donson says, at this stage in the conversation, both Eiling and Mr. Robinson interjected with comments regarding the necessity to spark off a conflict, as demographically it was better it happened now than in 20 years' time when it would be too late. Now you may say this is all bullshit. You may say this is all a bunch of lies. Here's the reality. Robinson, Eiling, Anna Marie Waters, all the people present in this meeting, none of them have denied that this took place. None of them took the time to write a refutation of this testimony. I believe this testimony because that's what I am seeing. I am seeing a bunch of bullshit instigators. Now let's go to Martin Sellner. Martin Sellner is another instigator. Now this guy, just to give you a little history on him, back in the day, he's 29, he's a couple years older than me, same generation as mine. But nonetheless, when he was younger, he was a neo-Nazi, part of a neo-Nazi gang. And there is a photo from, I'm assuming it's from the time when he was a neo-Nazi, of him with a bunch of Iranian guys, and Iranian people, and he has a keffiyeh around his neck. And there's his neo-Nazi friend next to him, and they're holding the flag of Iran. Now, this is when he was a neo-Nazi. He was pro-Iran. And we all know why the neo-Nazis have a fascination with Iran, because they see Iran as this great Aryan birthplace and all that. In fact, you will even see this in the a lot of this actually in the alt-right movement. Giorgiani and, well, what's his face? Richard Spencer, the famous alt-right leader in the United States. He works with an Iranian alt-right activist named, his last name is Giorgiani. I forget his first name. I think his first name is like Peter or something. But anyway, Mr. Giorgiani and Mr. Spencer are both friends, and they're actually allies in their alt-right activism. And they actually together rented a room, or it was like a room or apartment room in Virginia somewhere, and they made this their headquarters for their alt-right activities. There's even a photo on the internet of them in this room together. And I watched a debate, actually. Well, it wasn't a debate at all. It was Jesse Lee Peterson, who I consider to be an absolute traitor, interviewing Richard Spencer. And Richard Spencer actually said that that the Europeans don't need Christianity to have great civilization, because before Christianity we had great civilizations. And he named one of those civilizations the Persian Empire. So the alt-right movement actually considers the Persian Empire to be a part of ancient pre-Christian white civilization. So it doesn't really surprise me that Sellner was hanging out with Iranians. And he believed that it was time to change his political strategy from just hanging out with neo-Nazis. He started a Austrian division of the Identitarian movement. Now, the Identitarian movement originated in France, I think back in the 70s, and slowly and gradually it began to have different European branches. So Austrian division, recently they made a British division, hence why Sellner is with Tommy Robinson. Well, Sellner is another instigator. And I want to show you guys a video. This video is from this year, and it is a video of an American sodomite neo-Nazi by the name of Jack Donovan. He is speaking in an event in Germany. The event was organized by a German activist by the name of Götz Kubitschek. Götz Kubitschek was one of the founders of the Pegida movement, a movement that Tommy Robinson works deeply with. Götz Kubitschek is also the mentor, if you will, of Martin Sellner. And Martin Sellner was present in this meeting. And in this meeting, Martin Sellner actually spoke in this meeting. And one of the speakers at this meeting was Jack Donovan, sodomite American who promotes racism, eugenics, and paganism. And by paganism, I'm not talking about some old ladies with candles in their hands. I'm talking about like self-mutilation kind of stuff. Like he's carving on his arm with a knife and doing bloodletting rituals and all this sick stuff. And so Jack Donovan is in this meeting. Now, what is Jack Donovan saying in this meeting? He says that violence is good. He says that we as the white race have no obligation to be honest with people of other races. And therefore, in his mind, white people can lie and say whatever they want as long as they're dealing with people of non-white or non-European heritage, or people who are not pure white. They may be mixed or whatever. So in other words, he is promoting a form of neo-Nazi maruna. In maruna, a Muslim can lie to a non-Muslim. Well, in the ideology of Martin Sellner and all of his goons, they can lie to whoever they want. So when Martin Sellner says, I am not Nazi, I'm nationalist, I'm German nationalist, a poor Austrian nationalist, we're just poor Austrian nationalists trying to stop the Islamization of Europe. How am I supposed to even believe that? His friend, Donovan, just said that they can lie to people as long as they're not white. They don't have to be honest with them. So when Sellner and all of his friends come out saying we're not Nazis, they're actually lying. They're liars. It's obvious that they're liars because, well, look at the crap that Sellner promotes on his own website. Japanese nationalism, which is just Japanese racism. The same nationalism that advocated for the genocide of Chinese and Korean people and people who were not Japanese. And supposedly they're Europeanist, right? Pan-Europeanist. Then why are they so much in glee about Japanese nationalism, and why is one of their icons Yukio Mishima, who was a homosexual Japanese nationalist? They actually sell shirts. Sellner actually makes money selling shirts with Mishima's face on it. And there's another thing that Donovan says in this video. Donovan says that violence is not wrong. And in fact, there are circumstances, there's very few circumstances which you can't do violence, right? So in other words, there's let me just rephrase. He says that violence is good, and before you execute violence, before you carry out violence, there's only a small group of questions, a small list of questions that you have to ask yourself before committing violence. He says, can you get away with it? In other words, if you can get away with killing somebody or killing people, then go ahead and do it. He says, would killing people, this is another question that he has, would killing people bring a good benefit? If killing people has a good benefit, then go ahead and do it. This is being taught by an American homosexual, neo-pagan, neo-Nazi in Germany. And he is speaking to a crowd of nationalist Germans who are also pagans and sodomites and all that. These identitarians, Tommy Robinson, Anne-Marie Waters, Martin Sellner, Donovan, Jack Donovan, all these freaks, these people are not activists. These people are terrorists. And they want blood. As I showed you earlier in this video, Robinson actually conspires to cause violence between Muslim and non-Muslim. He actually wants Muslims to kill people so that he can use it to get to cause a reaction in the non-Muslim communities, get them to get angry, and it's all for the purpose of starting conflict and war and violence. And here is Sellner, and he is in this meeting, in this speaking organization with Jack Donovan. Jack Donovan is saying violence is good, and he even says that we should do violence because it would make the gods happy. What does St. Paul tell us about the gods of the pagans? They are not gods, they are demons. And Sellner says that he's a Catholic. Mr. Sellner, you are a Satan worshiper. But anyway, I'm going to play you guys this clip. Watch this video where Jack Donovan is saying you can lie as long as the person you're lying to is not white. You can do violence as long as you can get away with it and as long as it's beneficial. And he talks about pleasing the gods. Play the clip.
In my most recent book, Becoming a Barbarian, I argued against arguing with people who are not your people. We owe truth only to our tribe, to our brothers, to our people. We don't owe the state or the world anything. No truth is owed to strangers. It's fine to play into the narrative that violence is evil for strategic reasons. It's okay to play the game, but those of us who prefer the morality of masters to the morality of slaves must be careful that we don't allow the slave's narrative about violence to infect our minds and our cultures. We can say whatever we want to outsiders, as long as we don't actually start to believe it, or use it to justify weakness, submission, or inaction. For the noble barbarian, there is no question as to whether violence against people who are not your people is good or evil, or even morally justified. The only important questions about violence are, do I want to use violence? Is initiating violence in this scenario likely to produce a desirable result? Do I have a tactically viable plan for executing this violence? Am I capable of executing this violence effectively to produce the desired result? What are the potential long and short-term risks involved in initiating violence in this scenario? Is the desired result worth those risks? If the answer to all of those questions is yes, then by all means, press play. However, the answer is usually no. We all live in police surveillance states with legal systems that condemn physical aggression and in some cases even penalize self-defense. It doesn't matter how we think it should be, but that's how it is. We are ruled by those who advance doctrines of resentment, those who say that they value victimhood more than victory, who value weakness over strength, who are more concerned with social justice than actual justice. If we disagree, we have two options. We can become bitter and jealous and delusional and feel cheated of some imagined entitlement or right. In short, we can become the mirror of the mainstream and develop our own culture of resentment. Or we can promote internal cultures that recognize strength and dominance and the ability to execute violence successfully as golden values. We can cultivate strength within our own circles, demanding strength from each other in a world that hates it. We can value power by valuing it in ourselves and in our brothers. However, violence is a phenomenon of the body. To know it, to value it, to understand its poetry and its eternal language, you must experience it. Every once in a while, we all need to get punched in the face. I hear some of you are members of a fencing society and have a scar to prove it.
Sehr good.
Right on. It's not enough to read about violence, to surround ourselves with photographs of statues, to repeat quotations of stronger men. When men identify with mighty ancestors, but the memory of their violence and virility inspires no action, it's merely escapism, vicariousness, unearned pride. We cannot rest on the dead laurels of distant relations. My challenge to you is to create or expand among your brothers, your networks, your people, cultures in which violence is sacramental. If you cannot fight the world, fight each other. Joyfully. Trade, fight, compete, push each other. Use the practice of violence to create a sphere of strength around you and the people you care about. Keep getting stronger as everyone else gets weaker. The best revolt against a culture of weakness is to create a culture of strength. Advance among your peers a call to the physical, a culture that generates what Nietzsche would have called an effervescing healthiness that goes considerably beyond what is necessary for maintaining life. A culture that values sacramentally war, adventure, the chase, the dance, the tournament, on everything in fact which is contained in strong, free, and joyous action. Demonstrate the nobility of your spirit by living as our barbarian fathers did. By living like men who truly believe, who know that they are noble, beautiful, happy, and loved by the gods because they are powerful.
Danke.
So that was the video. And it's really a reflection of what is happening in this whole globe, what's happening in this whole world. You're seeing the rise of Japanese nationalism. Shinzo Abe, my goodness, he just won a third term by a landslide. His party won over 300 seats out of over 400 seats in parliament, in the Japanese parliament. He is set for being the longest ruling prime minister in Japanese history, at least in post-World War history, post-World War II history. He wants nuclear weapons. He wants war with China. He wants to finish off from where the Japanese... he wants to finish off from where the Japanese finished in the last World War. He wants to resume the genocide that Japan started. You have that sickness, and Shinzo Abe. I mean, people are saying that Shinzo Abe is great. The guy goes to a temple and worships the souls of people who killed Americans. I mean, and genocided Chinese people and genocided Koreans and Filipino people. It's like this would be like this is the equivalent to the Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran saying, let's worship the spirit of Ali or something like that. Now, if the Ayatollah does it, oh, it's a big deal. You know, oh, Iran's going to invade the world. But if Japan does it, it's okay because they're Japan. We don't want to hurt our allies, right? And then you have this situation in Europe, specifically Central Europe, where you have Alternative for Deutschland Party, which is the current day Nazi party in Germany, at least the most explicitly Nazi party. They take 95 seats in the German general election. And then you have the Christian Democrats, which is the most dominating party, although their domination in the German political realm is kind of lagging now. Nonetheless, they are also militarist, and they want to increase the GDP of Germany's defense spending to 3%, which is huge. And then you have Austria, the two biggest parties right now, Austrian Freedom Party and Austrian People's Party, both Nazi parties. Second biggest party in the Netherlands right now is the Freedom Party, ran by Geert Wilders, who is another agent of the counter-jihad. My whole point is, the whole world is right now going through the beginning stages of what eventually is going to culminate to a world war. It's all going to lead to violence. And as long as this nationalism stuff increases, it's going to implode into violence. And it's going to be extremely, extremely messy. And you have all these assholes in American society coming out and saying that I'm wearing a tinfoil hat because I go against Bannon. Well, let me tell you something. The very people who were pissed at me for exposing Glenn Beck are the very people who are pissed at me right now for exposing Bannon. Well, now you guys hate Beck, and now you guys love Bannon. Can't you see you're in this endless circle of regression? You just keep going back to the same low position of worshiping somebody and then hating the person for not even the good reasons? It's insane. But tyranny is founded on the masses, is what I like to say. And tyranny only thrives in the midst of a degenerate people and a people who don't care about what is taking place around them. In fact, tyranny is founded on people whose emotions are to the advantage of the tyrants and the evil ideologues who want to see despotism. Just look at the fact that a lot of these ideologues promote Martin Heidegger. They all do. They all promote Heidegger, who was a Nazi philosopher, and yet Heidegger is still, to this day, one of the most read philosophers in the world. Well, tell me, and Friedrich Nietzsche also, another philosopher who heavily influenced Nazism, and he also believed in eugenics. Well, tell me, how can you say that peace is going to be maintained when philosophers like Nietzsche and Heidegger and people like Charles Darwin are still being read widely? World War is coming, everyone. It's coming. And it's not going to just be the Muslims. Okay? It's going to be these also, I'm not saying the Muslims are exempt. No. The Muslims are going to be there, believe me. But it's also going to be the nationalist types, the neo-pagans from the West. I'm not saying they're going to come from America, but I will say they will definitely come from Europe. And you have Americans like Jack Donovan going to Europe and accelerating this sort of agenda. So many crazy people out there. And because, look how they used Islam to get people to believe in Nazism. Look how they did it. Oh, these Muslims are going to kill us. Oh, they hate white people. Oh, they hate white people. They get you to feel like a victim. So if you feel like, oh, there's a war on white people, what do I do? Well, here's National Socialism. You should follow that. And because your emotions are so chaotic, and you're not thinking straight, and your vision is clouded, it's in that state where your intellect is neutralized, and you are ripe for the picking. Ripe for the picking by the hand of these manipulators. And that's it. I think I've said enough for this video. This is Theodore Shoebat. Hope you guys have enjoyed this message. Hope you guys have learned something from this message. You just heard some theology. God bless and God be with us.